Good morning, Year 4. Welcome to your maths lesson for Wednesday, the 27th of January. I'm just going to share my screen for our warm-up. So for your warm-up this morning, I'd like you to have a go at using your mental calculation strategies to subtract. So we know that we can do these sums using column subtraction, but there are some easier ways to work them out. So I'd like to pause here and have a go at working those out. What mental strategies can you use to enable you to be able to work those out in your head? Jot down how you would do each one and we will share our answers in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to move on to show you how we might do some of these. And you can just have a little look through and see if they are the same as yours. So for example, we'll just talk about the first couple, 132, take away 30, I would just take away the tens. I would subtract the tens there, which would leave me with 102. And then this one, 265, take away 99. I would do 265, and I'm going to take away 100 because 90 is nearly 100 and 100 is much easier to take off. So if I do 265, take away 100, that would give me 165. And then because I took off one too many, I need to add that one back on to make 166. So you can pause it here and just have a look at the others and see if you did it in a similar way. It's not a right or wrong answer. You may have done it in a slightly different way, but those are some suggestions. So pause it here and have a look how you did with those. Okay, moving on to our main activity for the day. We'll have a quick recap. What is the quickest way of calculating the area of this rectangle? And we talked last time, somebody called Jack on our last flip chart decided that he was going to count how many squares there were in a row, and there are 3 here. And then how many rows? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So then we can use our times tables to help us, and we can say 3 times 6. And we say 3 times 6 is 18, and so we know that there are going to be 18 squares in here. Okay, so let's just put it here. Okay, and then if we move on. So today Max has made this shape using 7 identical square tiles. Okay, so 4 bits of paper. What other shapes could he make? Draw them on 1 centimetre paper. So if you've got post-it notes or something at home, they're a really good thing to use for this. So you could get 7 of those and make this shape. If not, you could just cut yourself 7 little squares. They don't need to be any particular size, just as long as they're the same size as each other. And then have a think about what shapes you could make. So a really good idea is to make the shape with the paper first, and then I want you to have a go at drawing it into your maths book, okay? So your maths book has got 1 centimetre little squares, so what other shapes could he make? So, for example, he could make this shape with them, okay? So there, he's just put all 7 of them in one straight row. That's still 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but they're just put in a different order. So have a little go. Either make yourself some squares or use post-it notes or just draw them into your book if you want to, but make sure you're making a shape. All the squares have to touch each other along at least one edge. Okay, you can't just have them touching by the corners. So see how many different shapes you can make. Off you go. Okay, hope it wasn't too much of a faff for you to find some bits of paper to use, or maybe you just drew them in your book. So if we have a look here as another example, here's another one. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you could have drawn. There are lots and lots and lots of different combinations you could have drawn. Okay, so as long as you've got 7 squares and they are attached on at least one straight edge of the side, then they are correct. It's really interesting here because the shapes all look really different, but their area is still the same, isn't it? So keep going on about playgrounds with areas, so I'll stick with my theme. If this was an area of the playground, it wouldn't actually be that much of a good space to run around in, would it? Because it's quite long and thin, but we could, if it was an area like that, shaped like that, that'd be quite a good area of playground, wouldn't it, to run around on? We could do all sorts of other things like this. We could take this one here and put it like this, and there really are lots and lots and lots of different ways to make those shapes. So they're all the same, all have the same area, but they are different shapes. Okay, so what we're going to have a little go at trying to do now is with the same sort of thing, but with a different area. So we had 7 squares before, and now we've got 8. So what I'd like you to do is to pause the video, and in your book, I'd like you to have a go at drawing some shapes with a an area, sorry, of 8. You don't need to make 8 tiles this time. You can just draw out 8 squares in your book. Okay, so start off drawing the rectangle, and then how can you move them around? That looks like a completely different shape. It looks loads bigger, doesn't it? But it's actually not. It's still just got an area of 8. So when you've done maybe, well, this one I've already done 2 for you. So do 4 for in total for 8, and then see if you can do 4 for 10 and 4 for 14 or more if you want to. So pause here and draw some shapes with areas of the numbers that are given here. Off you go. Okay. I'm not going to spend a long time trying to draw them because you know how wobbly my pen is on this page, but hopefully you have drawn lots of shapes, and you can check your answers very easily by counting how many squares are in the middle. So if I check this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Someone's got 8 squares, and I could move that square and put it up there, or I could move that square and put it up there, and do whatever I want. I could do lots and lots of different ones. So as long as you've got 10 squares within each of the things that each of the shapes that you've drawn with straight edges, then you've got it right, and some with 14 as well. I expect you found some of you a lot more than 4 of each. Okay, moving on. Have a look at this one. Lola now has 15 square tiles. What shapes can she make? So once again, going to pause the video and have a go at drawing a shape with an area of 15 squares. Off you go. Okay, so I can't move the squares individually, so I'm going to try and draw some little squares here to move around. So 1, 2, I know they're not joined up at the moment, 3, 4, 5, really hard to draw, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, just looks like a blob, doesn't it? 12, 13, 14 and 15. So I've got 15 squares there. They're not perfect squares. So I've got that. I could make a shape like that. I could have 3 by 5. And then I might move some of them around. I could have this one could be here. This one here. You don't need to colour them in. You can just draw the, oops. You can just draw the outside shape. A shape like that if I wanted to. Okay. Or I might decide I'm going to do something a bit different again. I might decide to put them all in a big, make a really long shape. Take all of those. And you can just play with them. Make loads and loads of different shapes. And then just to be awkward, I'm going to pop one up on the top there. Okay, and then I'm going to do, oh, shall I do another one? There. It's like a crocodile now. Now I'm going to take that one, I'm going to put that one up there. Okay, so she can make loads and loads of different shapes, and they've all got the same area of 15. Okay, but they're just all different in different shapes, making up different patterns. Now let's move on. So I would like you to draw a rectangle now, so it has to be a rectangle with an area of 12 squares. Now this is going to be very easy for you if you know your times table. okay? Because if you know a times table that's got 12 as the answer, that's how many rows and squares you need to draw. So just pause here, draw a rectangle with an area of 12 squares. Okay, so here are some possibilities. You may, my first thought was, oh, I know that 3 times 4 is 12, so I'm going to draw 4 squares, and I'm going to draw 3 rows of 4 squares, and I know that 3 times 4 will make 12. Then I thought, do I know any other multiplication? It has to be a rectangle, so I can't mess around and stick odd shapes up there. I thought, what else could I do? I know 2 times 6 is 12. So I drew 6 rows with 2 squares in each row. And I also know that 1 times 12 is 12. So I drew a great big long rectangle with 1 square in each of the 12 rows. Okay, so those are some of the possibilities that you might have had for drawing a rectangle with 12 squares. Excuse me, sorry. So your activity for today, if you're going to try silver, is this one. So Gus has made this shape using 4 identical square tiles. Rearrange the tiles to make a rectangle. Okay, so how can you make that into a rectangle? Elaine has made this shape using 6 identical square tiles. Rearrange the tiles to make a different rectangle. Okay, so see if you can make a different rectangle. And I'm just going to refer you back for those two to these. Look at those 3 possibilities. There's a long, thin one. It's 2 wide and 6 long, or 3 times 4. So there's different ways of doing it. So you need to do a similar thing for these. Then here we've got use identical square tiles, make a rectangle or square for each of the areas below. So can you draw a rectangle or a square with 4 squares? Can you draw a rectangle or a square with 6 squares? Can you draw a rectangle or a square with 12 squares and one with 18 squares? Okay, and then there's similar activity here for different numbers of squares. Okay, so it's probably a good idea for everyone to have a little go at that first to start you up, and then moving on to gold. Alea is using square tiles to make a shape. She says, I can make a rectangle using 8 tiles. Is she correct? Prove it. So if you think she's correct, draw a rectangle using 8 tiles, and that is you're proving it, okay? You've proved it if you can draw one and it's got 8 tiles. Then Simon has said something else. Simon is using square tiles to make a shape. He says, I can make a square using 5 tiles. Is he correct? Prove it. So if you think he's correct, draw it. And if you think he's not correct, explain why he's not correct. And then there's 2 other children who have got some things that they've drawn there, and you have to draw their shapes below. Obviously, you're not going to draw them on the screen. You draw them in your maths book. And if you write 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, then that makes it nice and easy. And then if you want to have a look at platinum, I'm going to move on to that in a second. Okay, so moving on. So here is a rectilinear shape. Using 7 more squares, can you make a rectangle? Okay, so you need to use 7 more squares, and you need to add them to this one, to this shape, to make a rectangle. Okay, can you find more than one way? So that's another interesting task. And then when you've done that, that's your maths lesson over for today. And I will see you again tomorrow for even more area. Bye-bye.